One of the most sensitive and frightening reports we have ever put together is the one we are going to present today. Our sources claim that the story has been simmering in the background. A dark episode that could destroy the Roloff dynasty from the ground up. We are discussing a harrowing health emergency, a planned lie, and a bold power grab that has the potential to permanently alter the course of Roloff Farms. This is the tale of the Saints plot and how Karen Chandler supposedly took over at Matt Roloff's darkest hour. We've been witnessing the Roloff family's slow-motion disintegration over the farm's destiny for years. However, what if a stealthy internal takeover posed a greater threat than a price dispute? According to our unique theories based on consistent insider information, a recent, unreported medical care turned into the ideal smokescreen for a vicious power struggle. The narrative that follows is a meticulous reenactment of events that have been purposefully concealed from the general public and even from the Roloff children. The story of Roloff Farms is going to take a very, very dark turn, so get ready. To gain control, Karen concealed Matt's medical condition from his family. Please do me a favor now if you believe in finding the truth and want to stay up to date on everything little people, big world before we delve into the terrifying timeline of this purported cover-up. Press the like button and ring that notification bell and click subscribe if you haven't already. Your assistance enables us to delve further and reveal these exclusive reports. You don't want to overlook any updates. The ideal storm. We must first establish the scene in order to comprehend the seriousness of what has transpired. Tension has been raging on Roloff Farms for the past few years. The aspiration of a family heritage, formerly the show's main support, has fallen apart. In a spectacular and highly visible way, the sale of the farm's north side to Matt's sons, Zach and Jeremy, had collapsed. There was a huge fallout. To put themselves physically and emotionally apart from Matt and Karen, Zach and Tori relocated to Battleground, Washington, an hour apart. After their desire to raise their family on a farm was rejected, Jeremy and Audrey forged their own route, buying a large property close by but staying emotionally apart from the main functions of the farm. Once a hive of family activity, the farm turned into a more sedate, remote kingdom. Matt Roloff is the ruler of the kingdom, and Karen Chandler is his constant queen-in-waiting. Our unnamed sources, who do not want to be identified for fear of retaliation, describe Matt Roloff as becoming more and more alone. His body was starting to exhibit increasingly noticeable indications of wear and tear after dozens of surgeries and a lifetime of physical struggles brought on by his dystrophic dysplasia. His motions were more difficult, and his dependence on crutches was more obvious than ever. But his intellect was as keen and aspirational as ever. He was in the midst of building his ideal home, a huge contemporary palace that was a testament to his own ideas. A long cry from the farmhouse where so many memories were made. The ideal storm started to form in this setting, with a broken family, an old father, and a new power structure firmly establishing itself around Matt and Karen. From farm manager to Matt's girlfriend and eventually fiancée, Karen had become heavily involved in all aspects of Matt's life. She was more than just his companion. She served as his confidant, operations manager, and gatekeeper. She was perhaps even more knowledgeable than Matt himself about the farm's operating flaws, legal framework, and financial situation. She was the throne's driving force. Additionally, our experts claim that she was just waiting for the ideal time to get her to move. Unfortunately, Matt's health would suffer as a result of that moment. According to all accounts, the day it occurred was ordinary. A cold, cloudy Tuesday in late fall. It was the end of pumpkin season. The masses had dispersed, and the property was now under a calm low. Ever the restless visionary, Matt was spending the evening in his double-wides office, the makeshift residence where he had spent years. He was bent over a big drafting table, making ideas for a new attraction that would open the next year, a modern, more approachable petting zoo. At an adjacent workstation, Karen was quietly working on her laptop with him, handling emails and balancing the last figures from the pumpkin season. The only sounds were Karen's keyboard clicking softly, Matt's pencil scratching, and the heater's faint hum. The incident happened around 8 p.m., according to a thorough report compiled by people familiar with Matt's routine and the layout of the property. Angry at a design error, Matt forced himself to reach for another plan that was coiled up in a tube and resting against a bookcase on the other side of the little room. He had performed the same motion thousands of times. However, something was different this evening. His right crutch's rubber tip is thought to have snagged on the edge of a thick area rug as he turned. He was momentarily unsteady, caught in a terrible moment of instability. He attempted to adjust his posture by shifting his weight and using his powerful upper body strength, but his body failed him. He slid down hard as the crutch skittered out from under him. It wasn't a spectacular plummet. The thud was heavy and unpleasant. The clatter of flesh and bone against the harsh floor. Matt let out a harsh, guttural yell of pain. The calm evening was broken by the sound of unadulterated pain. His leg twisted beneath him at an odd angle as he fell clumsily on his left side. Karen jerked her head away from her computer. She just gazed for a moment, her expression a mask of disbelief. She hurried over to join him. "Matt. Are you okay, Matt? Oh my gosh." But Matt wasn't feeling well. Sweat was beating on his pallid cheeks. His eyes were screwed shut in agony, and his teeth were clenched. All he could manage to say was a grunt of pain. "My hip." He was able to gasp. "I believe it's broken, Karen." This is the crucial stage, the turning point at which our sources claim that worry started to turn into calculation. Naturally, Karen's initial inclination was to assist. She dialed 911 right away, and as she gave the dispatcher their address, her voice wavered. However, she knelt next to Matt and tried to console him during the torturous minutes it took for the paramedics to arrive while he was married in terrible pain. It is said that another area of her brain started to function. Karen is a superb planner, according to an insider who has worked with her for years. According to the source, she sees every possibility and viewpoint, and even during a crisis, a part of her brain is always figuring out what to do next. Our unique theory suggests that Karen recognized not only a tragedy but an opportunity as Matt lay defenseless on the floor, totally exposed and reliant on her. For the first time, she could actually and fully grasp the keys to the kingdom. The kids and family that viewed her as an outsider lived far away. Her phone included the numbers for the accountants, attorneys, and business associates. Karen Chandler was in charge and Matt was unable to function. They claim that the idea started to take shape in her head as she was standing next to the man she claimed to love on the workplace floor. A network of ambiguous promises. When the paramedics arrived, they stabilized Matt expertly. The hospital's diagnosis of a severely shattered hip, a common but extremely deadly injury for someone with Matt's kind of dwarfism, confirmed their worst concerns. The physicians were direct. Pins and a plate would need to be inserted right away through surgery. The healing process would be drawn out, difficult, and unpleasant. His mobility would be severely limited for months, and he would be extensively drugged for weeks. He would be out of commission in every significant way. In a private consulting room, Dr. Albright, the orthopedic physician on call, whose name we have altered to protect our sources, apparently gave Karen an explanation of the issue. This is a serious trauma, yet is tough. The post-operative phase is crucial, according to the expert. He doesn't need any stress. Rest, medicine, and physical therapy, no business, no family strife. You will have to act as both his gatekeeper and his champion. The gatekeeper. The word lingered in the atmosphere. It wasn't a burden for Karen. It was ordered. The purported conspiracy of silence allegedly started at this point. Karen pulled out her phone while Matt was being prepared for surgery, severely sedated, and unable to speak for himself. She was aware that she needed to contact the family, but the way she did so would initiate the entire plot. It was a masterful exercise in narrative control, deflection, and downplaying. Zach was called. The casual dishonesty of our reconstruction of this call, which was based on second-hand recollections from family members, is unsettling. First, she called Zach. She said, "Hey, Zach, it's Karen," with a tone that was deliberately controlled to seem worried but not alarmed. Zach, probably detecting the strangeness of a late-night call, said, "Karen, what's up? Is everything okay?" She answered hastily, "Oh, everything's fine. Don't worry, I just wanted to let you know your dad had a little setback tonight. Just a silly fall in the office." You know how he is. Always trying to do too much. A fool. Is he okay? Where is he? He's fine. He's fine. Karen insisted, her tone breezy. He's just a bit banged up and his hip is sore. We're at the hospital, but honestly, the doctors are being completely overcautious. They just want to run some tests and keep him for observation. No need for everyone to panic and rush over. The last thing he needs is a big fuss. Notice the language. Little setback, silly fall, sore hip. It was a world away from severely fractured hip and emergency surgery. She framed the hospital visit as a precaution, not a crisis. Zach, an hour away with his own young family, would have no reason to doubt her. Okay, well, keep me posted. Tell him I love him. Of course I will, Karen said, her voice dripping with false sincerity. I'll handle everything here so he can focus on getting better. You just focus on Tori and the kids. We've got this. She hung up, leaving Zach with a sense of mild concern, but not alarm. The first firewall was built. The call to Jeremy. Next, she called Jeremy. The script was nearly identical. She used the same key phrases, downplaying the severity and emphasizing the need for Matt to rest without any stress. Hey Jay, it's Karen. Don't freak out. Everything is okay. She'd start immediately setting the tone. Your dad took a bit of a tumble. He's tough as nails. You know him. The doctors just want him to take it easy for a few days. I'm with him now and I'll be taking care of everything. Like Zach, Jeremy was kept at a distance, led to believe this was a minor incident that required no immediate action on his part. He was given the impression that a visit would be more of a burden than a help. The message was clear. I am in charge. Stay away. The call to Amy. The call to Amy was the most calculated of all. The history between these two women is famously fraught with tension and rivalry. Karen knew she had to handle this one perfectly to avoid raising suspicion. Amy, it's Karen. She said, her tone professional and detached. I'm calling to let you know that Matt had an accident this evening. Before you worry, he is stable and the doctors are taking excellent care of him. An accident? What happened? Is he okay? Amy's maternal alarm bells would have been ringing. He had a fall at the house. He's in a lot of pain, but he's strong, Karen explained, offering a sliver of truth to Amy, knowing she would be harder to fool. He's going into surgery shortly for his hip. The doctors have advised that he needs an environment of absolute calm to recover. Matt asked for me to handle all communications to minimize his stress. This was the master stroke. By invoking Matt's supposed wishes and the doctor's orders, she effectively shut Amy out. She positioned herself not as a girlfriend, but as Matt's official medically sanctioned protector. She created a boundary that Amy would feel socially obligated to respect lest she be seen as the dramatic ex-wife causing a scene. Of course, Amy would have said, her voice tight with concern and suspicion she couldn't voice. Please, just tell him. Tell him I'm thinking of him. I will, Karen said, and then ended the call. In the span of less than 15 minutes, Karen Chandler had successfully isolated Matt Roloff from his entire family. She had erected a wall of carefully chosen words, framing her control as helpfulness, her secrecy as protection. With Matt being wheeled into the operating room, unconscious and unaware, she was now the sole source of information, the singular point of contact, the farm, the finances, the future. It was all hers to command. The power grab could now begin in earnest. A blitzkrieg of paperwork. With the family placated and kept at bay, Karen allegedly launched a swift and ruthless campaign to consolidate her power. While Matt was lying in a hospital bed, recovering from major surgery, and cycling through waves of anesthesia and powerful opioid painkillers, Karen was not by his side, holding his hand. According to our explosive insider reports, she was at the farm office embarking on a legal and financial blitzkrieg. Her first call made the very morning Matt was in surgery was not to a family member with an update, but to a high-powered attorney in Portland, a specialist in estate planning and corporate law. This wasn't the falsy family lawyer the Roloffs had used for years. This was a shark. Over a series of encrypted emails and frantic phone calls that first day, Karen set her plan into motion. The objective to restructure Matt's assets in a way that would make her the primary and in some cases sole beneficiary and controller. Phase 1. The Roloff Legacy Trust. The centerpiece of her strategy was the immediate creation of a new legal entity, which we're calling the Roloff Legacy Trust. Based on documents our sources claimed to have seen. This wasn't just any trust. It was an irrevocable trust, a complex legal vehicle that is incredibly difficult to alter once it's established. And the fine print was devastating. While Matt Roloff was named as the primary beneficiary, Karen Chandler was named as the sole trustee. This is a critical distinction. As trustee, she had complete administrative control. She could manage the assets, make investment decisions, and even sell property held within the trust, all without Matt's active signature under the guise of acting in his best interest. Sources claim she spent hours with the lawyer faxing and scanning documents from the farm office, property deeds, LLC registration papers for the pumpkin patch business, bank statements, investment portfolios. She moved with a chilling efficiency, transferring the ownership of key farm assets, the very parcels of land the boys had fought for, out of Matt's personal name or his existing, more flexible family trust and into this new ironclad entity that she alone controlled. Phase 2. Securing the signature. Of course, for this to be legal, she needed Matt's signature. And this is perhaps the most disturbing part of the entire alleged scheme. 2 days after his surgery, Karen arrived at the hospital. Matt was in a bad way. He was disoriented, in constant pain, and on a cocktail of medications, including morphine, that left him in a fog. He was lucid only in short, unpredictable bursts. Karen came not with grapes in a card, but with a thick leather-bound folder in a pen. "Hey honey," she cooed, stroking his forehead. "How are you feeling?" Matt could only manage a weak groan. "Tired. Hurts." "I know, baby. I know," she said soothingly. "Listen, I don't want to bother you, but there are just a few routine farm bills and insurance forms that need your signature to make sure everything keeps running smoothly while you're in here. Just some boring paperwork. Can you just sign a few spots for me? Then you can go right back to sleep." She presented him with a stack of papers nearly an inch thick, but she didn't show him the complex legal jargon. She cleverly used cover sheets and strategically placed sign here sticky tabs to obscure the true nature of the documents. To a man in a morphine-induced haze, it would have looked like any other pile of administrative paperwork. Trusting her completely, believing she was just keeping the farm afloat, Matt, with a shaky hand guided by hers, scrolled his signature where she indicated. He signed away control of his empire and he never even knew it. With those faint strokes of a pen, Karen Chandler had legally become the most powerful person in the Roloff dynasty. Phase 3. Cutting off the old guard. With the trust established and the assets secured, Karen's next move was to sever the remaining business ties Matt had with his sons. These were often informal handshake agreements, the kind of deals a father makes with his children. An email, which a source claims to have read, was sent from Matt's official farm account, but written by Karen to Zach. 4 years, Zach had a verbal agreement to manage the private tour operations during pumpkin season, for which he received a significant percentage of the profits. The email was cold and corporate. Subject: operational changes for upcoming season. Zach, in light of recent events and a strategic review of farm operations, we will be restructuring the management of the tour program. Your services as an independent contractor will no longer be required for the upcoming season. We wish you the best in your future endeavors. Sincerely, Roloff Farms Management. No dad, no personal touch, just a brutal corporate severing of ties. A similar communication was allegedly sent to Jeremy, terminating a long-standing agreement he had to use the farm as a backdrop for some of his commercial photography and marketing projects. She was systematically erasing the children from the farm's business operations, one cold email at a time. Phase 4. The developers. The final and most audacious step in her initial power grab was to do the one thing Matt had always resisted: entertain offers from real estate developers. While publicly claiming the less than a week after Matt's fall, while he was still in the hospital, Karen was reportedly spotted at a discreet coffee shop in Hillsborough. She wasn't alone, though, as 2 men in expensive suits, representatives from a major real estate development firm, were seated across the table from her. Matt had always privately held a deep emotional attachment to every acre of the farm, but our insiders insist that Karen lacks this sentimentality. "We'll call Pacific View Properties." A source who witnessed the meeting was shocked. On the table between them were laminated maps of Roloff farms with specific parcels circled in red marker, the very parcels that bordered the main road, the most commercially viable sections of the property. She was all business. The source reported she was talking about zoning variances, water rights, and potential lot yields. She told them that Mr. Roloff was exploring options for downsizing his portfolio and that she was his authorized agent to begin preliminary discussions. She was actively trying to sell off pieces of the farm, the birthright of the Roloff children, before Matt was even out of his hospital bed. She was claiming it was what Matt would want, a way to simplify his life after his health scare. But the timeline tells a different story. This wasn't a plan born of concern. The speed and precision of her actions, the lawyer, the trust, the emails, the developer meeting, all point to a premeditated strategy, a playbook. The Roloff children were back in their respective homes in Battleground and Hillsborough, living in a state of manufactured calm, believing their father was recovering from a minor, albeit painful, injury. They trusted Karen's updates, which were always brief and positive. "Dad had a good night." She would text the family group chat. "The doctors are really pleased with his progress. He's still very tired." "It's just weird," Zach told Tori one evening while looking through his phone. "I've called Dad 3 times this week, and every time it goes to voicemail." But as the days stretched into a week, the carefully crafted facade started to show signs of weakness, and the total lack of direct contact with their father began to feel more like a lockdown than a form of protection. Then, a few hours later, Karen texts me to let me know that he is sleeping. "Does he sleep all the time?" Tori added, peering over his shoulder, "and the texts don't sound like him. Your dad uses a million emojis and makes typos. These are perfect. They sound like Karen." Zach knew his father, and even after a major surgery, Matt would want to talk to his kids to hear his grandkids' voices. This complete radio silence was unusual and extremely unnerving. Amy was conversing with Chris in a similar manner. Karen claimed it was only hip surgery, but she's keeping him segregated as if he were under quarantine. "Something's not right, Chris," she muttered, pacing her kitchen. "The children were present when I underwent surgery. The children were present when Matt underwent neck surgery years ago. We do it. It's what Dad would want." Amy, the farm's first matriarch, had a gut feeling that her family was in jeopardy since she was aware of Karen's desire and had seen her develop influence over Matt for years. She attempted to call Matt's hospital room directly, but the nurse's station informed her that all calls were being routed through Miss Chandler at the patient's request. This was a dead end, a wall she couldn't get past. The last red flag arrived when Zach got that icy corporate email dismissing him from the farm tours. He stared at his phone, blood freezing, wondering why his father, in his hospital bed, would have approved such a call and explain it himself. This was not his father, it was Karen. Zach quickly called Jeremy. "Did you receive a strange email from the farm? The one concerning my contract for photos?" "Yeah," Jeremy said, his voice tense. The first document has a blue legal cover and is thick. He's not a lawyer, but he scans through the pages, looking for names, in bright big letters that read, "The Roloff Legacy Trust Agreement." He notices that Matthew J. Roloff, his father, is named as the grantor and beneficiary. Then he notices the line that makes him gasp. Karen L. Chandler, sole trustee. The thick legal ease suddenly becomes crystal obvious when he reads the paragraph beneath it. For the benefit of the beneficiary, the trustee has the sole and full authority to manage, administer, sell, lease, or otherwise dispose of any and all assets held inside the trust. She is in complete control. In a panic, he turns to the final page. Although it is poor, his father's signature is present. A spidery, unsteady script that hardly matches his signature, which is usually confident. Additionally, the date next to it is from 2 days after the fall, which is when Karen said he was doing well. Now his hands are shaking. He opens the folder further. He discovers copies of the property deeds that formally transferred title from Matthew J. Roloff to the Roloff Legacy Trust for parcels A, B, and the land that houses the Big Red Barn and the old home. Only last week is the timestamp on the filings. He then discovers that the emails he and Jeremy received cancelling their contracts are the same ones that were printed out in chilly black ink. He can see the IP address from which the email was sent at the bottom of the metadata. The hospital wasn't the source. From the farm's own network, it was sent. The final paper is the most damning of them, and it comes from this very office. This one-page memo is printed on the letterhead of Pacific View Properties, a posh commercial real estate company. Chandler is the recipient. Subject: synopsis of the initial conversation. The property of Roloff Farms. It was a joy to meet with you on Wednesday, Miss Chandler. As agreed upon, we are putting together an initial appraisal for the sale of parcels B and C. According to our preliminary analysis, there appears to be a great deal of developer interest, and we are certain that we may obtain proposals that far exceed agricultural value. As per your request, we will only speak with you as the Trust's only authorized agent and will keep this investigation completely private. We wait for your signal to continue. Zach glances at the memo's date. It was from 3 days following the fall of his father. Karen was meeting with developers to divide up and sell Matt's legacy while he lay in a hospital, struggling for his life. Everything falls into place. The evasive phone calls, the visits that were barred, the loneliness, and the falsehoods. It was a coup. A covert, sneaky, mercilessly effective takeover. She had seized everything by taking advantage of his father's damaged body. He is overcome by a white-hot wrath that is more powerful and pure than anything he has ever experienced. It seems like a bodily violation because the betrayal is so complete and profound. This has nothing to do with a dispute about the price of a farm sale. It was predatory. This was wicked. His fingers are shaking so much that he can hardly use his phone when he takes it out. Every page in the folder, the developer memo, the deeds, the emails, and the trust document are all photographed by him. After that, he calls. Jeremy, he murmurs in a low, frighteningly composed voice. Now you have to get to the farm. Invite Audrey to accompany you. Then call your mother, please. Instruct her and Chris to arrive as soon as possible. On the phone, don't explain why. Simply inform them that there is a code red emergency. The person on the other end is pausing. What is it, Zach? What's the matter? Zach, utterly oblivious to the extent of his father's betrayal, glances over at him as he lies in the hospital bed in a chemically induced slumber. Zach's voice cracks with rage as he exclaims, "It's worse than we ever could have imagined. I have evidence that Karen has taken everything." The meeting point of lies and truth. The storm is at its quietest at Roloff Farms for the next 45 minutes. Zach takes a seat next to his father's bed. On his lap was the damning leather folder. He remains still. He merely observes his father's breathing. The anger within him hardened into a stern determination. He is more than just a son now. He protects. He is the custodian of a recently stolen legacy. Outside, he hears gravel crunching, and observes the arrival of Karen's SUV. She smiles blithely and cheerfully as she exits with groceries bags. She enters humming to herself and stops abruptly upon seeing him seated. A flash of panic, followed by a mask of severe disapproval, replaces her grin. Her voice is stern as she asks, "Zachary, what on earth are you doing here?" Zach slowly gets to his feet, holding the folder, and says, "I specifically told you your father needed absolute quiet. You shouldn't be here. You're stressing him out." He doesn't speak louder. He doesn't have to. No roar can compare to the silent ferocity in his gaze. He repeats, his words brimming with disdain, stressing him out. "Karen, look at him. Take a peek at him. He had a sore hip, you told me. You assured me he was all right. This is not acceptable. He is so high on drugs that he hardly recognizes his own name. You've been doing him what?" Karen's face goes white. Her poise begins to waver as she puts down the items. He was prescribed medication by the doctors. For the suffering. To make sure he has a peaceful, stress-free space to recover, I am strictly according to their instructions. A setting free from tension. Zach advances a step. Is that the reason you met with Pacific View Properties developers 3 days after he nearly passed away? Did the doctor also prescribe that? Karen's face is utterly devoid of color. As she looks at the packet he is holding, she realizes she has been caught. She stutters, I don't know what you're talking about. However, the deception is pitiful and feeble. Zach adds in a dangerously low voice, don't you? He flings the developer's memo onto the coffee table after opening the folder. Or what about this? Karen Chandler, you are the sole trustee of the Roloff Legacy Trust. Was my dad high on morphine when he asked you to do that? Did he ask you to autograph the works he had done over his life? She adds in a raised, defensive voice, you don't understand. I was keeping him safe. I was defending his possessions against. You guys and your incessant demands are the source of all the turmoil. For him, this makes things easier. It guarantees the safety of his legacy. With you, his legacy is secure. Zach scoffs at the harsh, resentful sound. Piece by piece, you were selling it off. I was fired by you. Jeremy was fired by you. You were totally ignoring us. The core Roloff family is together for the first time in almost 10 years. In the furnace of this common trauma, they have been reforged. The final irony is that Karen Chandler might have unintentionally been the spark that kept the Roloff tradition intact in her deliberate attempt to take charge and remove the kids from it. She made the family realize what they stood to lose and what was really at risk. Each other, not just money or land. Roloff Farm's future is less assured than it has ever been. Would Matt be able to withstand the court struggle and regain control? Will he eventually figure out a means to pass if he does? Having now seen the alternative, he passed it on to his kids. Or has this experience permanently destroyed his dream? These are the questions that loom over Helvishire, Oregon's undulating hills. A dark and unsettling chapter has been revealed by this insider revelation. Love, trust, and the ultimate betrayal are the themes of this tale. How do you feel about this unexpected development? Was Karen always a heartless, cunning opportunist? Or was she a woman who thought she was doing what was best for Matt, but was driven to extremes by the never-ending family drama? Share your wild theories with us in the space provided for comments below. Additionally, make sure you have the LPBW update subscription set on if you want to be informed of every development in this continuing story. At every stage, we will be monitoring the court cases, the family relationships, and the farm's future. This level of analysis is unique to this site. We appreciate your participation in this special report. Stay until the next time. Knowledgeable.